My experience on the F3 was in all of my tours. That was so 43 Squadron, Treble 1 Squadron 56, so the OCU did QRA as well. We even did Q on Saturdays because we didn't get deployed. So the OCU instructors did a Saturday, selfless instructors doing a Saturday QRA. And I also did the QRA on 1435 in the Falklands as well. I guess it's worth talking about, how you set yourself up for QRA in the first place. You need to do a bit of training in order to get going with QRA. And that involves, basic stuff, but it's actually quite difficult when you're doing it in bad weather. So we did intercepts, of course, against multiple evading targets, and we did visual identification procedures against those. So what does that mean? Visual identifying an aircraft is relatively easy in blue sky conditions, but if it's in cloud or at night with the target with the lights off, it can be a bit more challenging, of course. And so we would do these visual identification procedures where you would get behind a target and then approach them in the cloud using the radar to get really close. The navigator monitoring the radar, the pilot flying a dot. So he's got a head-up display with some directions using a dot and a small circle, so you can follow that in and you get to a really close range from the target, and then you might be able to see it at that point. You also have to do some shadowing of targets. So imagine that you had visually identified a target and you were then told to follow the target around to monitor the target. You do that within weapons range. So that would be about a mile away from behind the target. And of course, if there's multiple targets, then you need to you have your radar looking at all of the targets, and you need to be able to follow them around. That was quite an intense activity. So that was part of the training as well. And the final part of training, really, before I get on to kind of a typical day in the Q shed, would be to do a practice scramble. So on the squadron, you would go and set up an aircraft as if it was in QRA. So we'll come on to that in a minute. You cock the jet like you would cock a gun, get it ready, and then sit in the crew room and then get a scramble message, and then go and intercept, obviously testing at that point that you can get into the air in a suitable amount of time, which is pretty quick. And then once you're in the air, you go after a target. To identify a target, you actually don't know what the target's going to be. So it could be anyone, really. And if somebody goes in a flight plan and they put on the remarks in the flight plan, embellish, the word embellish, it means that they could be used as a target for QRA. And so on my particular training practice scramble, we went after a German twin-engine transport aircraft, which turned out to be a Transall, and so that was the aircraft that had been selected. And we came alongside, identified the Transall, and job done.